Everyone, we are live with another episode of Level Up Law. So welcome on in. Every Tuesday at noon, South Carolina Legal Services is leveling up your legal knowledge about an area of law that we practice in. I'm Senior Staff Attorney Susan Ingalls here with our producer Kenneth Elliott. And you are viewing live our Staff Attorney Elliott Tate from our Charleston office, who is our statewide education law unit head. And today, Elliott is bringing to our audience part 3 of your child's IEP, a section by section guide with some special additions to the show today. But before we get started with Elliott's presentation, I do always want to remind our audience that this presentation is not legal advice. It's just general information for the public. If you need the help of a lawyer, you can call our intake line here at South Carolina Legal Services or apply online. You may be eligible for our free legal assistance. Then that information on how to apply will be provided at the end of today's presentation. Also, as a reminder, all of our episodes are posted by our producer Kenneth Elliott to the Level Up Law playlist on our YouTube channel, usually within about 24 hours. And I do want to point out that you'll see on your screen a QR code. So if you have a cell phone nearby, there you go, right there in the right-hand corner, and check that out, scan that QR code, and you can sign up for our newsletter here at South Carolina Legal Services, which will have some great information for you every time we send it out. So definitely do that. So today, if you want to put a question in the question box, Elliott may have time to answer questions. We'll just have to see. And also, as a reminder, be sure and check out our social media, like, subscribe, and get all the up-to-date information that we provide here on Level Up Law, and all of our other resources. Got a lot of neat stuff coming your way. And those websites and social media handles can also be found on that last slide in today's presentation. Okay, Elliott, let's get started.
Let's do it. Hey, everyone. We're back again, part 3. Are we going to finish today? I feel like we might. If we don't, I mean, part 4, why not? You know, if Francis Ford Coppola can tell the Godfather story in 3 parts, heck, we can do an IEP in 3 parts, but no promises. All right, so let's click through this thing. Part 2, oops, I didn't update that. Part 3. This is my information. Susie just gave me a nice intro. So we've already done most of this, right? So, but let me just briefly go and introduce this video again. So what is this? We're going through an actual IEP that's been redacted, and we're going section by section through it. It's a deep dive. Who is it for? It's for parents of kids who have IEPs, who want to know more about the document itself, who want to be able to advocate for themselves. We've got little tips and tricks here and there from practicing attorneys that not just myself, but my colleagues and other folks across the state who have given their input on this, and just to help you represent yourself at meetings if you want to do that. It's also for maybe an attorney who wants to familiarize themselves with the IEP process. This is a South Carolina IEP because I'm a South Carolina lawyer, but because this is federal law, this is mostly applicable around the country. So there's a glossary at our online classroom. All of this is also being posted to our online classroom. It's located at learnthelaw.org. The title of our classroom is Education Law Issues and How to Handle Them. So you can just Google that if you want to bookmark that. So here's the first page. It took us a whole day to do this one. Just to reacclimate yourself, this child's 7th, 8th grade, so the end of middle school. Their primary disability is listed as other health impairment, but we know based on our knowledge that they've got ADHD and ODD. So that's the background here. We've done all of this, and we are going to start now with post-secondary considerations. So by law, once a child turns 13, or if they turn 13 in the course of the school year, the IEP has to start looking ahead, because one of the main goals of special education as stated in the IDEA, which is the big federal statute that authorizes and funds all of this, is that we are to prepare kids with special needs for the world after school, right? So we want to use school to make them good members of society who can get a job and be independent. They can get transportation, they can count money, they can manage their finances, they can cook and clean, all that stuff. We want to make sure that our special ed students end their time in public school as independent as possible and as employable as possible. So we have to start thinking about that at age 13 by law. So this child is turning 13 within the course of this IEP, so we have post-secondary considerations. And what happens, you see there's an informal interview. So the special ed teacher, the coordinator, whoever's doing the IEP, has talked to the child and said, what do you want to do? Top 2 dream jobs, working at Mercedes-Benz. They want to fix, model, remodel cars, or build houses. So great interests, great need for that. Special interests, dreams about his future are either working with cars, building houses. So you see, just a basic summary from the child on what they want to do with their life. And this is actually, just to kind of put this into context, this is a pretty good one. And in fact, at points, it's kind of excellent how detailed it is, especially for a kid who's, in 7th or 8th grade. They're not really going to know much about what they want to do, but we should at least get them thinking about it. Career employment goal: upon completion of technical college or an apprenticeship, they'll be employed at a car shop or construction company. So, that's given this child's his grades and his aspirations, that's appropriate for this child. So upon graduating from high school, they're going to enroll in technical college or an apprenticeship. So that, that's a really kind of important thing to keep in mind is, are we preparing this kid for more school? Is that a realistic option for this kid? Sometimes for my lawyers who are here, you've got to have a difficult conversation because your client might not have a realistic understanding of what their child's going to be capable of after 18 or 21 years of public school. So yeah, so this is important to think about. Obviously, the closer you get to graduation date, the more and more important this needs to be, and the more verbose this should be, more comprehensive. But right now, 7th, 8th grade, this is more than sufficient, in my opinion. So that is the post-secondary section. Now, you might start seeing a goal related to that. There isn't a goal related to transition, I think, just because this is, again, a middle schooler. In high school, you start to see post-secondary kind of transition goals. We call it transition because we're transitioning from school to the workforce. You might have a goal related to that, right? So it might be, doing research. I've seen goals like do a PowerPoint presentation for your special ed teacher about what it's required to be, a certified technician, that sort of thing, right? So, well, you've got to go to technical college, you got to get a certificate, that sort of thing. Got to have log a bunch of hours, so they have an understanding of what it is, how they get to accomplish the goal of whatever they want to do after school. So that is not, however, in this IEP because the kid's too young, really. So now we are going to jump into the meat of the IEP. And you're going to hear someone else say that because I'm about to play you a video that we paid a lot of money to make, and it's worth it because we wrote the script, we had it edited by other attorneys and staff, it was recorded professionally, and you can find this on not just our YouTube channel at South Carolina Legal Services, but also on the first page of our online classroom. And the reason why we paid the money for this and put in all the work is because this is like the most important thing. It's a 3.5, 4 minute video. So if anything, save it, go find this video, save it, bookmark it, because if you are preparing for an IEP meeting, you're not gonna watch all the many hours of this. But you should watch this 3.5-minute video because it's super important, and we're gonna use it to break down the 4 goals that are in this IEP. So without further ado, let's play this thing. You guys see this? Oh, you see my face? Nope. Cool. All right. Do you want to proceed? Sure. Why not? I'd love to proceed. This is good. This is gonna work. I know it's gonna work, right, guys? I want to hit play and see what happens. This
Education program.
All right, I was muted for a second. All right, let's just take that in for a second because this is moving super quick. So, specific, measurable, attainable, results oriented, and time bound. All right, so let's pick it back up. Yeah, I mean, come on, guys. That's just a good video. Now, it does go through, get out of here. Okay, hold on. Screen monitor. Which one do I want here? Hold on, go back to this. You guys, we good now? Can you guys see this? Page 8? All right. You can't see my cheat sheet? Good. All right, my notes. So that's a lot of info. I get it. So we're gonna unpack that a little bit in the context of this IEP. All right. So we've got goals here. We got 4 goals. And remember, the child in question in this IEP, so they've got ADHD, they've got ODD, so they've got behavioral issues, right? So they, as you guys don't remember, we're having some issues. Look at the amount, the incidence of referrals that we're having here. It is a lot of referrals. So like the months of November and December, we didn't go a day without having an incident that required a referral. So discipline is a big deal for this child. So we're going to focus the IEP goals on behavior. We want to make sure that this kid stays in school so that he or she can get an education. So let's look at how this IEP is addressing that. So goal number 1, area of need, organizational study skills. You know, that's like not a necessary section, but it kind of helps us understand under what umbrella we're putting this IEP goal. Some IEPs are not going to have that. It's not legally necessary, but it's kind of helpful to understand what area we're focusing on. So organizational study skills, start date, end date. So you'll see that the start dates and end dates are going to be the same. It's 1 year, right? So it's a full year. That's common. You'll see here frequency of progress report to parents every 4.5 weeks. That lines up with report cards probably. Some of these goals you're going to want weekly progress on. So if I'm reviewing this before or ahead of an IEP meeting, I'm circling this and I'm saying, well, let's see if that's going to be appropriate for my client. And you as the parent should circle it, highlight it, and say, let's ask about whether or not we need more frequent updates. Because again, these things can be changed. This is not a document that lasts the entire year unless it's appropriate for the entire year. Very, very, very commonly, you will be looking at the data mid-year and say, this IEP is not appropriate. We gotta get back into the IEP meeting room and redraw this thing. So these things it's not just once a year. So please, I've been hounded on that, and I will continue to do so.
So Elliot, can I stop you for just a minute?
Oh, please.
Ask. We're seeing your Microsoft Word screen, and it's just on page 6. Is that what we're supposed to be?
No.
seeing?
You're not supposed to see that. That's not. Well, no. Oh, here we go. Oh, look at that. Hold on. Thank you. Okay. You guys see that now?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Okay. So, measurable goal. So here's they already put in. Oh, this is measurable. Again, one of the SMART SMART parts of this acronym that we're going to break down. So, by April 2019, given daily instruction and support in the area of organization with a visual task list, the student will initiate his task list and complete the assigned tasks independently from a baseline of 0% to 70% completion as measured by weekly work completion grades. So I will warn you, if this is the first time you're looking at an IEP goal, that it is nothing but a run-on sentence, because we got to pack a bunch of information into it. You can have multiple sentences, and sometimes it's appropriate to do that, or break it up with a semicolon. But these are these are long sentences that you will just have to break up in your mind sometimes and just divide. Okay, so this is one section, this is another part, this is another part. So let's apply what we learned in that video and see if this is a SMART goal. So specific. Are we addressing a specific area of need? So to know that, we have to kind of go back in the IEP in the functional performance section and see if there's any evidence to support that this child has organization issues. And I can tell you that yes, he definitely does. So look here, findings of the CAS-2 assessment. Specifically, he's got difficulty with the functional organization study skills required for school success. So this child essentially, because of his ADHD, is not turning in his assignments, is not completing and turning in assignments. And again, the important connection that we have to make is a lot of kids have that problem. But this child, we can connect it to his ADHD. So that as a result of his disability, he is not organized, he's not completing his work, he's not turning in his work. So what we've done is created a skill. Well, hopefully we're creating a skill in this goal related to that. So that's the specific area of need that we are focusing on. So let's read through and see if it's still specific. And you know that we have to kind of figure out what exactly they're going to be doing in the special ed classroom. Like what is it going to look like? Because you know when the special ed teacher gets this thing, and hopefully they're sitting at the table, or if their replacement or a sub comes in, they're going to look at the goals and say, okay, here are my marching orders. Here's what I've got to be doing. I got to be working on this. So given daily instruction and support in the area of organization with a visual task list, the student will initiate his task list and complete the assigned tasks independently from a baseline of 0% to 70% completion. So I'm reading that, I say, yeah, that's specific enough. I kind of know what that's talking about, but I'm going to ask a question about this. What is a visual task list? I don't know what that is. I think I know what it is. I think essentially he's going to be given a list of all the things he's got to do that day in that class, and give him a checklist so that he knows what is he expected to do that day, and check it off as he goes through. So complete his assigned tasks independently, right? That's ultimately, we don't want to be hovering over him being like, all right, student, you got to be completing your work, you got to move on, you got to do this. And sometimes that happens, right? You got to redirect kids sometimes, but we want to work on independence, right? So that's what this goal is all about. So we want the student to initiate his visual task list. Again, I'm going to be asking about that to make sure we're all on the same page. I might even say, hey, do you have like an example for me to look at? I want to know what this kid's going to be looking at. And complete the assigned tasks independently, right? From baseline of 0% to 70%. So I think that's specific. Now, measurable. Talked about how we've got to have a baseline. And look, the word baseline is in here. Hooray. Good job, school. I will tell you, it's not uncommon for there not to be a baseline. It's helpful to use the word baseline. So make sure that there is a baseline. So 0% now. Classically, you would need to look back somewhere in the IEP for the data to support 0%. I didn't see anything specifically in here because I think this is a new idea. Essentially, the team said, hey, he's having trouble completing his work, getting it turned in on time. Let's do a visual task list, and let's do a goal where he's got to initiate his task list, he's got to complete it, and that'll help him get his work in on time. So we've never done it before, so we don't know how well he's going to do it, but let's just say he's got a 0% because he's just never done it. We're fudging a little bit because, again, you would need to refer to somewhere in the IEP showing there's data for that baseline, but there is none. So we're fudging a little bit, but it's to the advantage of the student, right? So we're going from 0% to 70% completion. So we want 70% of the time, we want him to to be completing his task list and completing his assigned task independently. So, you know, as I read this again, it's kind of like, well, what does that mean? 70% of the time. So, and that might require us to look at that visual task. Is it a list of check marks? Are we talking about individual assignments? So this goal might need to be more specific about, you know, what that looks like. What does it mean to complete those tasks 70% of the time? Does that mean turning in his assignments? So like worksheets and quizzes, that sort of thing, projects. So I think this goal could be more specific. And again, I've read this goal 10 times preparing for this. And now that I'm presenting it to you, I see, oh, it actually could be more specific, because I'm not exactly sure how we're going to be measuring that, especially when we're using percentages, right? So I'd be asking the team to supplement this goal to make it clear about what exactly we are measuring. So that's the S, that's the M of SMART. Let's look at attainable. So attainable is just, do we think in a year that he'll get up to 70%? Can he do it, or could he do better? Again, we don't really have data on this specific issue, but we do know in the IEP, he's got significant deficits in this area. Completing your work 70% of the time, you know, you go, I wish it could be higher. I don't know that we've got data to support that he could do it any higher. So that's the kind of thing that you maybe talk about with the team. You as parents or your clients, if you're an attorney, need to weigh in on that as to whether they think that's a good number. And again, it can always be changed. If a couple weeks go by and 70% is super easy, then maybe we need to bump it up to 80 or 90%. So that is A. Let's look at R, results oriented. I think we basically already talked about this, but it needs to specify where in the school they're going to be getting these services, right? So we need to be looking ahead to when the teacher's looking at this in the classroom, when the sub is in the classroom, being like, okay, what am I doing with this kid now? And that's sort of in here. So by April 2019, given daily instruction and support. So every day, there's going to be instruction and support on this. It could be more specific. There is another section which specifies when and how much time you're going to be getting for each of these goals. That's kind of a new thing that IEPs are doing. This IEP doesn't, I don't think it has that section, so we would need to specify it. So if you're looking at this in the IEP meeting, or you're looking at it ahead, preparing for the IEP meeting, you would need to go to the section behind this and just kind of look and say, okay, all right, well, so here's the organization studies goal. How much time are they looking at assigning per week to my child, and where is it going to be happening? And that'll specify, you know, it'll be one-on-one or group support by the special ed teacher in the special ed classroom, for instance. It could be where the special ed teacher works with the regular ed teacher in what we call push in. So pull out is where, you know, you pull the kid out of regular ed, you put them in the special ed classroom, and they get specialized instruction. Push in is where the special ed teacher supports the regular ed teacher, and that kid stays in the regular ed classroom. And together, the two teachers are, you know, instructing, supporting, while that kid stays in regular ed, which is an amazing thing. We want that kid to stay in regular ed as much as humanly possible. So maybe the teacher's coming in and just like kind of check in, making sure he's got the supports that he needs, making sure that he knows where to find his checklist, making sure he's, you know, providing some accountability, that sort of thing. So that would need to be specified in the goal. And if not in the goal, then for those of you who are looking at new IEPs, this IEP is 3 or 4 years old now. It will be in a different section that immediately precedes this. So finally, time bound. That's the easiest one. So SMART, T for time bound. That's right here, right? Start date, end date, and that's going to be for all of these, right? So we want to have an appropriate time date, and there are some cases where you want to put a shorter time on it. A lot of times the school goes, well, we don't have a whole lot of data, so let's just kind of see. So maybe for this first goal, because we don't have a whole lot of data, we don't do an end date of a year from now. We do an end date 3 months from now. I will tell you, schools are not going to default to that, because that means that they're going to have another meeting, and they don't want to do that because that takes 2 to 4 hours out of their day, right? But in a case where there's no good data and we're doing something kind of experimental, that's something that I just I bring to the table and I say, hey, so I love goal 1. It's good with the changes that we've made. Because we don't have data, because it's kind of new and experimental, I think we got to put a 3-month time on this thing. And so we are automatically having to come back to the table to see if it's appropriate. So that's what I would do there. SMART. So with those tweaks, goal 1 is a SMART goal. We did it, y'all. Goal number 1. Let me pause, Susie. Any questions? Any comments?
Let's see here. We do have a question. Bear with me, and I will bring it up here where I can actually see it. Says, I think it's just a comment. 4.5 weeks means 8 updates or /PM periods a school year versus 4 updates, I guess.
What?
Now the question is just a 4.5 weeks means 8 updates per month or per periods a school year versus 4 updates, I guess, 4x, 4 times.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but
Sure.
maybe Ann can clarify for us. So continue and we'll see if there's a clarification on that.
Got it. Okay. Goal 2. Again, area of need that we're focusing on: social, emotional, instructional, special education transition. I don't know, this is a typo. It doesn't really deal with transition. Again, transition is we're looking at this kid out of school in the workforce. Start dates, again, the same. Measurable goal, here we go. By April 2019, given opportunities for practice in verbal visual prompting, take a beat there. What the hell does that mean? The student will use appropriate and neutral language, tone, volume, words, threatening language, when interacting with adults to increase his monthly % of days without incident from a baseline of 0% to 50% of days without incident, as measured by a behavior data sheet. All right, here we go. Look at these lovely run-on sentences, right? You gotta like take a breath multiple times through these things. So let's look at this. SMART goal, here we go. SMART, is it specific? Well, this is like honestly where we spend the most time. Is it specific and measurable? So, and it really, when we can zoom out and just say, does it make any darn sense? Are we honing in on an area of need, number 1, and 2, like, does it make any sense? These things shouldn't be full of jargon necessarily. They should be specific, and sometimes you got to use like some jargon to be specific sometimes, but just try and avoid it. And it's a strength as a writer and as a professional to describe something without using jargon. So by April 2019, given opportunities for practice and visual prompting. So notice how that compares to given daily instruction and support. Given opportunities for practice. So the way that this is worded, it doesn't necessarily read like there's going to be affirmative instruction. So I would pause and say, hold on, like, is there any instruction related to this? So to zoom out on this goal, this is a goal related to this child's use of profanity with teachers especially. So we're focusing on neutral language. We got a definition basically, or what we're looking at for neutral language: the tone, the volume, the words, the threatening language when interacting with adults, right? So this child is having lots of issues speaking appropriately with adults, and that's related to the ODD, right? The oppositional defiant disorder. So my question would be, don't we need to be instructing this child, and certainly at least weekly, maybe more than that? Do we need, does it need to be done by a therapist, by a certified, licensed social worker or counselor? And that might not be necessary, but they're certainly more qualified than a special ed teacher, probably in certain kinds of things like emotional regulation. So, and really, when my kids, my clients who are students have issues with behavior, I'm always talking about, is this kid in therapy? Does this kid have a therapist? And it doesn't have to be in a school, although it could be. And sometimes the parents have already secured services and they do that outside of school, and like that's a safe haven for that child. They don't want that mixed into school. Awesome. If not, then it could be appropriate for a child here, and we can make a goal related to it. So given opportunities for practice and verbal visual prompting. So essentially, that's like, I guess they could be practicing in the special ed classroom maybe, but we should specify that. Verbal visual prompting, I want to know exactly what we're talking about. Is it like someone's like silently be like, oh no, ooh, no? I mean, what is that? What is that supposed to mean? I don't know. I was in this meeting 4 or 5 years ago, so, but I don't remember. I'm going to ask about that. I'm going to circle that and be like, tell me what that is. And if it doesn't make sense, I'm like, could you be more specific? Which is the S in SMART. So look how I came full circle with that. Let's see if there are any other areas for specificity. They'll use appropriate and neutral language. I'm almost certain that the reason why we have tone, volume, words, threatening language is because I was like, sorry, what is neutral language? And everyone's like, let's go ahead and be more specific about it. Yeah, let's do that. When interacting with adults, right? Because the IEP shows that this child doesn't have issues with students per se. It's with teachers. It's that defiance from the ODD comes out when dealing with adults. So that's where that is. To increase his monthly percent of days without incident from a baseline of 0% to 50%. So now we're transitioning from S to M, right? So measurable in the SMART goals. So we're increasing his monthly percent of days without incident from a baseline of 0% to 50% of days without incident. Now on specificity and measurability, that's kind of overlapping with my comment here. So one is monthly. I want to maybe drop that down to looking at it on a weekly basis, because I want this behavior data sheet, whatever the heck that is. I'll be asking about that, of course, and I want to see a copy of it in the IEP meeting. I want that sent home every week. I want my clients, if the parents, or if you're a parent, you're going to want to see that every week. You might even want to see it every day. my 3-year-old is in daycare right now, and we get a report every day at nap time from our teacher, because we're having some defiance issues. But that's neither here nor there. So we want that every day, because when I get home and my wife and I are there with our daughter, we want to be addressing that day. So that, monthly doesn't seem to be appropriate there. So without incident is the other thing. So without incident, I mean, we kind of all know what that means, but I want, that's when I go, sorry, I hate to be the annoying lawyer in the room, but like, can we specify what that means? What's an incident? I use the word incident in family court litigation all the time, like, what is it? So I want to make sure that it means something, something that's I probably say something like an action, a behavior that is against the student code of conduct, which results in a referral. So, and honestly, like, that's the kind of thing, I say that out loud and someone else in the room says, well, let me clean that up a little bit. And we're workshopping it together. That's what the IEP team is supposed to do. You're workshopping language. So I've got an idea, and it's super wordy because I'm kind of thinking about it on the fly, and someone else says, yeah, okay, let's do that, let's change this, and someone's typing it on the computer, and we see it in black and white, and we go, actually, let's change this word, let's be more specific there. And it's a fluid conversation. That's what this is supposed to be. And that's what a good lawyer is going to do for you. And if you don't have a lawyer, that's what you should do as a parent. Is just be like, hey, could we like be more specific there? Not sure what we're measuring. So there's that. Again, with the measurement, we got a baseline. The word baseline, thank you for putting that in, school. And again, if you've looked at IEPs, you'll know that like it's rarely in there for some reason. 0% to 50% of days without incident. So there it is. And the reason why we use percentage of days is we're talking about, a month, and there's different amount of school days in a month. Even if we bump it down to a week, if we're measuring on a weekly basis, what I think is more appropriate, you might have a day or two that's vacation. So we use percentage of days. I think that's appropriate.
And Elliot, if I could interject here,
Please.
Our statement that we were talking about earlier may be on point here. I think it's just one of our viewers was pointing out, as you had talked about on I guess PM is progress monitoring. So I didn't know that when I said PM. But anyway, she says that you mentioned how often progress monitoring is done as per the IEP, which was 4.5 weeks. And progress monitoring will be given 8 times during the IEP. Report cards come out every 9 weeks or 4 times a year. So I think the point is to think about, which is kind of what you just said, you need to think about the timing of things and how the school year goes and the calendar, basically, I guess. So.
Yes, thank you. That's a great comment. I appreciate that. Good deal. It's always nice to have smart people in the audience to help me out. So I appreciate that. Thank you. So we're looking at attainable now. So we're at 0%, right? So basically, every day this child's getting a referral. And the question becomes, given what we know about this student, given the supports that we have available, how well do we think they're going to do? 50% with that incident. You look at that and you go, oh gosh, man. So like every other day you're getting a referral. That's still a lot. So that's a tough question that you've got to ask and talk openly with the IEP team and talk with your clients if you're an attorney, or talk amongst yourselves if you're the parents, right? And see if that's appropriate as an attainable goal. Results oriented, we kind of talked about that, right? Like where's this happening? I don't know. I can't really tell. I can sort of fill in the gaps based on my experience, but that's not going to be sufficient for an IEP. This isn't meant for someone who's been practicing law for almost 10 years. This is meant for teachers and for parents, right? So, that would need to be bumped up. And then of course, time bound, we've got the 1 year. That's going to be true for all of these. Here we go, goal 3. Area of need behavior, instructional transition. Again, I don't know why transition was just thrown in there. Doesn't make any sense to me. But here we go. By next year, when given a visual schedule and a system for taking a break as needed, the student will attend his core connections and U101 classes on time with 80% accuracy, measured by PowerSchool attendance data, monitored by the case manager. Okay, so what is this goal getting at? Getting to class on time. It also mentions taking a break is needed. So it's a little bit messed up in that regard. So we are encouraging this kid because they have ADHD and ODD, because they can get explosive. We want to make sure we build in a break for them, and that's in one of the accommodations, which we'll probably get to next time. But part 4, it's coming at us, guys. It's looming. So that we want to encourage this person to take a break as needed. Unfortunately, that's not really what this one's monitoring, right? It's monitoring, it seems to be measuring getting to class on time, which we can go back and look at our IEP. That's an issue. This kid is like leaving class. Number 1, he's leaving class. Number 2, he's just like staying away from class. He'll just, if he gets mad or upset, he stands up, he walks out of the classroom, goes to the bathroom, goes and messes with the locker, goes and, talks to his friends or a teacher or something like that, and just kind of does whatever he wants. Well, we want him to have a cool down period, use it appropriately, but we also don't want him to be wandering the halls whenever the heck he wants, right? So I think that's what this goal is getting at. So we've got some specificity and some measurability issues here. So when given a visual schedule and a system for taking a break, given a visual schedule, what is a visual schedule? I don't even know what is that? Is that like if you write down a schedule, it's inherently visual. So I'll be asking questions about that in the meeting. When given a system for taking a break as needed, that's good. So we should and this is probably referring to the accommodation section about how to take a break. And I'm wondering if that's in here. Yeah, provide option for seat breaks, that sort of thing. So I want to make sure that I'm thumbing through the IEP and being like, okay, is there somewhere else in this document that specifies the system for taking a break? I'm not just letting the school just like whatever we develop the system to be. No, I want to know what that system is, so that we're all on the same page. So that when Mr. Smith in physics sees my kid walking around, he's not like, hey, what are you doing, kid? You're out of class. Go to the principal's office. I want Mr. Smith to know. No, he's allowed to. It's in the IEP and it's very clear. So no referral, sir. Go back to teaching physics. So we got some lack of specificity on this, right? We also, let's jump ahead to the R part of SMART, results oriented, is when and where and how is this happening? So does it involve any specialized instruction? Is the counselor or is his special ed teacher teaching him anything about this? So that's an important question to jump ahead to R. So when given that schedule or system for taking a break, he'll attend his core connections and U101 classes. So he's attending his classes on time, right? 80% of the time. Again, so it's not measuring use of the break appropriately. And a lot of times, when you get a cool down pass as a kid with ADHD and ODD, you want to make sure that you're monitoring how that's being used. And that's sort of like, if you skip ahead to goal 4 and skim it quickly, that's like kind of what we're getting at with goals 3 and 4, but it's not specific in this. So if I'm the attorney, or if I'm mom or dad in this situation, I want to make sure I'm like, hey, if we're trying to figure out and make sure that this kid is appropriately using his break, let's make a goal about it. So I might even just break that into a 5th goal. Goal 5 is, and we take out this whole break thing, is the goal 5 is about using the break, using the cool down pass appropriately. So let's just take that off the table and assume in this hypothetical, we've got a goal 5 for that. And believe me, that is within your right. And if there's anything in these goals that are not addressing an area of need as identified in the IEP, then say, hey, let's do a 5th goal. Let's do a 6th goal. Screw it. Like as many goals as this kid needs. So we're gonna break off this chunk like a starfish arm, and we're gonna let it grow into a new goal. Is that gross? I don't know. So again, we're focusing on getting to class on time with 80% accuracy. So like 80% accuracy, that's sort of like the verbiage that people use in writing these goals. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like 80% accuracy of getting, just like, I would probably write it that he's going to get to class on time 80%, at least 80% of the time, as measured by Power School attendance data monitored by the case manager. Now, so I'd make that change. The other thing is, I don't like how this is being measured, because I don't know how reliable Power School attendance data is going to be. I don't know that teachers are going to be reliably marking kids as tardy. So I would probably, want to have my own checklist. And sometimes for some students, depending on their age, it's appropriate for essentially like they go into class, they have a checklist, and like their teacher signs them in as being there on time. That might be appropriate. For a kid with ODD in middle school, that might not work, but I'd float that out there to see. I want to make sure that the teachers, because middle school, you're changing classes, you've got 2, 3, maybe 4 teachers depending on your electives, right? I want to make sure that they have a specific thing that they're looking at every day for this kid, not just a generic thing like Power School, which every kid has, but something specific for this student, measuring this specific goal. So monitored by the case manager. Okay, like that's nice. But I want to make sure that my clients, the parents of my kid, are also getting that data so they can keep track too. Because it's important to have accountability in these things. All right. So we did SMART, or we did specific, measurable, attainable. We have to look back and see, oh, we don't have a baseline. Hey guys, we're missing a baseline. So that's interesting. We need to go back and set a baseline based on the information that we have. So that's not in there. And see, as good as they were with goals 1 and 2, they just forgot about it on goal 3. How about that? So we want to have that in there. And is it attainable? That's a question for the team. Results oriented, we talked about, and time bound, we talked about, right? So boom. Goal 4, we got 6 minutes. By April 2019, so in a year, when given a visual schedule, there it is again, and a system for taking a break as needed, I guess they thought it was so good from goal number 3. Let's just cut and paste it. It was so good. So hopefully, but if you've raised your objections about this for goal 3, they're going to be like, okay, so it looks like we need to, Mr. Tate wants us to be more specific about this, so let's go ahead and talk about this. So the student will increase classroom expectations of behavior. Pause to let you figure out what the heck that means. While decreasing incidence of disruptive non-compliance within the general education setting from 52 incidents to less than 20 incidents, measured by discipline referrals documented in Review 360. And that's just like the internal software they use to manage their students, case management software, I guess. So is it specific? We kind of look at specific and measurable kind of together. That's at least how I do it. So the student's going to increase classroom expectations of behavior and then decrease incidence of this. So we're doing a positive and a negative at the same time. I might either break this down and to have a goal that's focusing on the negative and then have a goal focusing on the positive, or just have a goal that's focusing on positive expectations, right? It is true that this kid has a bunch of referrals and we want to get those down. And normally if this was the only goal related to behavior, I'd say, no, we need to break it down. Like what exactly are the issues? Like, why is he getting referred? Well, he's getting referred because of, like we saw on the previous goals. He's not completing his work. He is verbally abusive with staff. And he's just leaving the classroom whenever the heck he wants, right? So those are the main issues. So we've got goals focusing on those. So is it necessary to have a fourth goal, just saying we want to just generally lower his referrals down? Probably not. That's just too broad. That's not specific enough. If there's another area of behavior that we need to focus on, well, let's make a goal about it. So instead, I might make this just a positive goal. So I might write it to say, given redirection, the student's going to increase his ability to be redirected by a teacher from X amount of time, so essentially let me zoom out a second before I finish that goal. We want to make sure that this kid can receive redirection, right? Because we know this kid's not going to be perfect. No kid's going to be perfect in class, right? Everyone needs to be redirected. It's just, and by redirected, I mean, stop doing that. Stop, like, hey, put that away. That's like 90% of parenting, right? Just reminding the kids, like, hey, I'm watching you and you can't be doing that. So that's what I would focus on, is set up a system where this kid can receive redirection and not blow up. And I'd be focusing on a positive. I want to make this a positive goal. So instead of decreasing incidence of disruptive behavior, I want to increase the amount of times that he can receive redirection and be redirected, right? So he stands up and he's out of area. A teacher should be able to say, hey, you need to be back in your seat. And that student needs to be able to receive that and be like, all right, got you, walk back. That is a huge, amazing thing if we can do that. So that's what I would focus this goal on. We are out of time, y'all. Part 4, TBD. Follow us on Instagram and the socials, and we'll let you know when that is. But Susie, Kenneth, thanks, guys. Oh, let me zoom ahead. Sorry. So this is what we all got to get through. Part 4. Boop. There's that QR code again.
Thank you so much, Elliot. I really want to thank you for another excellent presentation on the IEP, and it'll be great to have part 4, because going through this, I think section by section, line by line, is really truly helpful, and I appreciate the participation of our audience, and it's clear that this is important information both for students, parents, and for attorneys who might be helping a student out. So really an important area of law that we practice in. So please keep in mind, our viewers, that we do assist clients with education issues quite a bit. And hopefully this information is helpful to you. And if you need a lawyer for an education issue, again, here's all our contact information so you can apply. We have that telephone intake service where you can call and talk to someone in person, with our intake specialists who are terrific at getting those intakes done, or you can apply online, and we also take those applications that way. So Keep in mind that if you need to look at this again or you want to share the video on part 3 of our IEP series, please go to our YouTube channel and check that out. Share it with folks and let people know that we're doing this series and that Elliot and his team have done a great job putting together that online classroom. So there's all kinds of resources for you out there. So thanks again, Elliot. That was just another great presentation going through that IEP. And to our audience, thank you again for being with us. And be sure to tune in next week for another episode of Level Up Law on Tuesday at noon. To observe Hispanic Heritage Month, our migrant attorney, Mary Goff, will talk about what our migrant unit here at South Carolina Legal Services does and how they are cultivating access to justice for South Carolina migrant farm workers. So be sure and tune in next week. Thanks again, Elliot. Thanks to our audience. That concludes today's webinar.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right.